It's nice to see everyone. And so I'll definitely be mindful of the audience. So some things that I might share might sound like, well, that was a weird way of saying it, and that's why. Um, but I just wanted to take the opportunity to share a bit of my testimony. And as I was seeking to just glorify the Lord, I'm like, okay, 35 years is a blessing, and God's been faithful through it all. And so I just wanted to glorify Him, and this was one of the ways that I sought to do so. And so just sharing a little bit of my testimony before coming to Christ, but then I also want to share parts of my testimony after coming to Christ, because sometimes that's really loud. Sometimes, we think about just the journey to Christ, and then we come to Christ, and it's like, oh, so then it was happily ever after, and, nothing bad ever happened, right? And so I wanted to also just highlight how the Lord has been faithful, not just to save me, but continually just keep me and keep me on this journey. And so to start off, I will say I am so grateful for every person here, because you've been a part of my journey, even if it's just been a brief moment, or like my mom from before I even was outside of the womb. You've played a part. And so even with the different parts of my testimony, I'm grateful for each part of it, because God works it all together for the good of those who love Him, who are called according to His purpose. And the next verse, a lot of times we think about Romans 8 and we quote that part, but the next verse is, it's for a purpose. It's to conform us to the image of His Son. So every part, whether it's dark or super bright because of the light of Jesus, it's all for His glory, and He's doing something in all of it. So to fast forward to before I was here, I grew up in a Christian home, and prior to even being born, the doctor sent my mom home to have me prematurely, much prematurely, so much so they said, like, there's nothing we can do, just go home and have your baby. And we can't do anything. So she was 5 months pregnant at the time, which is not when babies are supposed to be coming out. And so she prayed for me, and not only obviously was I born, but I was born on my due date, June 2nd. So I'm grateful for a mom who knew the Lord and would cry out to the Lord on my behalf even before I was here. Growing up in a Christian home, I believe the lie that so many of us believe, and many of you here might have believed the same lie, that you weren't loved. That was my own belief. But even as I think back, I'm like, no, I was loved. I've always been loved by God, and I've been loved by people too. But sometimes the enemy will cloud your judgment and allow you to highlight all the things that aren't going the way you want it to. And if I don't get what I want, then nobody cares about me, which was completely not the truth. But because of that, I just continued to try to run my own life. And so it was like I always had this belief in God, where it's like, yeah, I know God exists. I never thought like there was another God or anything, but it was just like, I want to be Lord of my life. I didn't say those words. I just said I want to do what I want to do. And so I did what I wanted to do for my childhood and teenage years, and got into relationships that were not healthy, entered into marriages and divorce and engagements and more engagements. And so by the time I was 22, I had been married and divorced and engaged 2 more times to 2 other people. And so if you couldn't tell, I was definitely looking for love in a man. And so at around 23, after the second engagement was broken off, I was like, okay, Lord, I just want you. Like I was done with the same pattern that I had done. And I was like, okay, I just want you. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try to get close to the Lord. And during that time, I still had like one foot in and one foot out. Um, some of you who might have grown up in church might be able to relate to that, where it's like, yeah, I go to church, I'll even serve on ministries and do different things, but my heart is still like, I still really want to do what I want to do. And so I was talking to another guy that was in a church. We weren't at the same church at that time, but we were in a church. And quickly in talking to that person, I ended up being forced to do things that I didn't want to do. And at that point is when I drew the line and I was like, okay, I'm going to stop trying to play with fire and expect to not get burned. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I was like, okay, now I'm really like just surrendering to the Lord, because I can't do this like I know Jesus enough, but I still want to do my own thing. And so at that point, I just started pursuing the Lord. I already had Cameron and Sabrina at the time, and Jesus just became my everything. And one of the desires of my heart at that time, and even to this day, has been marriage and children and all that stuff. And so I was like, okay, if I had 3 engagements by 22, not walking with the Lord, when I come to the Lord, I'll do things His way. I'll, save myself for marriage. I'll do all this stuff. And I'm like, I'll get married, have more children. And well, 12 years later, that hasn't been the story that the Lord has written for me. But His plan is so perfect and so great that through the hills and valleys of it, I've been able to trust in Him, to just know that His plans are good. And throughout my time walking with Him, like I said, once I got saved, it wasn't, oh, everything is great now. And a lot of times people will see me. Sometimes people will ask me, like, why are you smiling? Or why are you, always so cheerful? And of course, I'm not always cheerful. This is definitely the disposition that I prefer. But no, some of you in this room have definitely walked with me through depression and, literally in the last few years, not wanting to be here and taking steps to not. And so I'm always grateful for not just what He saved me from before, but what He continues to save me from, how He continues to just share His love and His mercy and His grace. And, there's so many details, but like I said, as I'm thinking of my testimony, I know the details of it, but just keeping in mind the audience that I have, I just know that He's faithful. And I pray that if you don't know Him, that you would get to know Him. And if you do know Him, that you would love Him and serve Him and surrender completely every area. I know sometimes that's hard when you have these things in life that are demanding your attention, or I know finances is a very big thing for people. Like you might say like, oh yeah, I'll surrender this area, but I gotta eat, I have to sleep somewhere. And I can definitely say there's been times where from month to month, I'm like, okay, I don't know if we're going to be homeless this month, but God is still good. I remember, our weekly food budget being $20 for the week at a point, not $20 per person, not a day, like for the week. And God was faithful. Like my kids didn't even know. They were younger at the time, and they didn't even know like how poor we were until they got older. And now they're like, but it's like God provided. He was faithful, and He continues to provide, whether it's financially, whether it's relationally. Some of you guys are new to this space and don't know like the history, but I didn't even want to move here. As a fellowship, we were meeting like from house to house, and I was like, oh, this is so good. Like this looks like Acts to me. Like I want to stay here. And so for a time period, we were talking about, okay, a building, let's like get into a building. And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like I grew up in church and I was like, no, this is good. There was a intimacy there. But also as a result of fear and hurt in the past, it was just like, no, I don't want to do anything. But there's so many of you that I wouldn't have met had we not been obedient to the Lord and really just stepped out and did what he wanted us to do. And so, like Elder Kennard said, don't despise small beginnings. And so even coming here, this might seem small, but I know that whatever God is doing, it's for a purpose. And it's not just for the person that he's doing it in or through, but it's for the world. And so I pray that, like I said, if you know him, let your light shine before men, that they will see your good works and glorify your Father in heaven. So thank you.